You've been taught your whole life to be a good person, but here's the uncomfortable truth. Good people are often ignored, used, manipulated, and left behind by people who are far less moral. Not because the world is evil, but because nobody ever taught you how power really works. Today, I'm going to show you the secret Machiavelli tried to explain 500 years ago. Morality without strategy is weakness, and the world punishes weakness every single day without mercy. Every day, there's a complex game of power, perception, and self-interest unfolding around you, while you were taught to focus only on being good and hope the universe would handle the rest. Some people still operate with that idealistic belief. Others have quietly learned to combine genuine values with Machiavellian insight, understanding how power really works, when morality serves their purpose, and when it's being used against them. What you're about to hear isn't comfortable, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. You'll start recognizing why certain people get away with everything, why moral voices are often ignored, and why noble intentions so often lead to painful outcomes. If you prefer simple stories about good guys and bad guys, this will challenge you. But if you're ready to understand the hidden price of morality and how to protect yourself from paying it unnecessarily, then drop this affirmation in the comments. I seek strategic wisdom. Because what's coming next isn't about abandoning your ethics. It's about finally understanding the real rules of the world you've been trying to be good in. Number 1. The limitation of rigid morality. Let me ask you something that might unsettle you more than any philosophical debate. When was the last time following your moral code perfectly, without compromise, without strategy, without considering timing or consequences, actually led to real, measurable improvement in your life? Not a moment where you felt like a good person, not a moment where others praised your integrity, but a moment where your moral choice directly produced better results, more stability, more influence, or greater long-term impact for you and the people you care about. If you're struggling to remember, there's a reason for that, and it's not because morality is useless. It's because morality without understanding power makes you weak, predictable, and easy to use. From childhood, you were taught simple rules about right and wrong. Always tell the truth, always play fair, never put yourself first. Give people the benefit of the doubt, forgive quickly, and expect the universe to reward you eventually. But look closely at the people who taught you those rules: parents, teachers, community leaders, authority figures. When their own interests were truly on the line, when their reputation, status, or resources were at risk, did they always obey those same simple rules in their purest form, or did they quietly bend, reinterpret, or selectively apply them to protect what mattered most to them? This isn't hypocrisy, it's strategy nobody talks about. Many people preach rigid morality outwardly, but practice adaptive morality inwardly. They know the world doesn't run on purity alone, so they keep the complexity for themselves and hand the simplicity to you. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago, when he suggested that rulers must sometimes choose between what appears virtuous and what actually preserves their power and their people. Because rigid goodness, applied blindly, can destroy both. That doesn't mean he advocated cruelty for its own sake. It means he recognized that if you cling to a moral rule, even when it clearly harms your long-term purpose, you're not being righteous, you're being rigid. And rigid people are easy to predict. In a world where others carefully calculate when to reveal truth and when to remain silent, you blurt out everything in the name of honesty. In a world where others balance generosity with boundaries, you give endlessly and then wonder why no one protects you. In a world where others understand timing, optics, and human weakness, you walk in assuming that being good is enough to keep you safe. While you're following moral rules as if they're universal laws that everyone agreed to, other people are quietly observing your patterns and learning exactly how to move around you. They know you'll avoid conflict, so they push a little harder. They know you'll forgive, so they risk repeating the offense. They know you fear being seen as selfish, so they subtly frame any self-protection on your part as wrong, unkind, or unspiritual. And you, trapped in rigid morality, feel guilty for even thinking about protecting your own interests. You weren't just taught to be good. You were conditioned to believe that questioning how morality operates in the real world makes you bad. That thinking strategically about ethics makes you manipulative. That considering consequences makes you cold. But the people who create real change, the ones whose decisions actually shape lives and histories, don't see morality and strategy work best together, not against each other. They understand that a moral principle is not truly moral if it consistently creates harm in practice. They understand that sometimes you must adapt how you express your values to protect those values from being used against you. The real danger isn't that you'll abandon your morality. The real danger is that you'll cling to it so rigidly that it becomes your cage while others quietly walk free. Don't be the person who follows a moral script so inflexibly that you never question who wrote it, who benefits from it, and whether it actually leads to the outcomes you believe in. The world has never rewarded rigid morality as much as it has rewarded effective morality. Morality guided by purpose, protected by awareness, and strengthened by a clear understanding of how power really works. The question is not whether you'll be moral, but whether you'll be moral and blind or moral and awake. Number 2. The psychology of moral expectations. Here's something most people never examine because they're too busy trying to be good. Morality isn't just something you practice. It's something other people project onto you and quietly use to shape your behavior. The people who understand this dynamic don't just act moral. They understand when moral expectations are being used to keep them compliant. They know that as long as you're terrified of being seen as selfish, unkind, or not a good person, your actions can be steered without you even noticing. Some people benefit immensely from your predictable morality. They benefit when you always give the benefit of the doubt, even after repeated patterns. They benefit when you avoid difficult conversations in the name of peace. They benefit when you carry all the guilt, while they carry all the freedom. Think about the common moral messages you've heard your whole life. Always turn the other cheek. Translation: let people hurt you twice and call it virtue. Always put others first. Translation: allow your needs, dreams, and boundaries to be optional while theirs are non-negotiable. Never rock the boat. Translation: keep quiet about unfairness, disrespect, and manipulation, so the people benefiting from it never feel uncomfortable. Forgive and forget. Translation: reset the game to 0, so the person who harmed you never has to face the consequences of their behavior. These phrases sound noble, but ask yourself, who gains the most when you live by them without question, you or the people who like you better when you're easy to control? Let me paint a few scenes you may recognize. At work, someone repeatedly makes cutting jokes at your expense, and when you finally consider saying something, you're told, "Don't be so sensitive, they're just kidding, be the bigger person." So you swallow it, again, and your silence teaches them that your dignity is negotiable as long as they hide behind humor. In your family, you're always the one who shows up, who fixes problems, who sacrifices sleep, money, and time. But the moment you say no, you're hit with, "Wow, that's not like you. I thought you were more caring than that." Your goodness becomes a cage they shut whenever you try to step out. In relationships, Someone takes advantage of your kindness, ignores your needs, and when you try to set a boundary, they say, "I thought you were supposed to be understanding. I thought you were different from other people." Suddenly, morality isn't about what's right. It's about whether you're still convenient. Machiavelli once wrote that men are so simple and so driven by immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack people to deceive. Today, the deception is more subtle. You're not tricked into evil, you're tricked into one-sided virtue. You're trained to feel guilty for asking for reciprocity. You're taught that standing up for yourself is aggression, that saying no is cold, that recognizing patterns is judgmental. Meanwhile, notice how the same people preaching endless forgiveness apply morality to themselves. Do they quietly excuse their own harsh words because they were stressed? Do they justify their broken promises as life happens? Do they expect understanding when they fail, but demand perfection when you do? That's not shared morality, that's asymmetric morality. You are held to a higher standard than the people using that standard to keep you in place, and it doesn't stop at individuals. Systems, workplaces, communities, even entire cultures often promote moral narratives that keep the majority compliant, while a small group operates with far more flexibility. Good employees go above and beyond, meaning you should sacrifice evenings and weekends while leadership protects their time. Good citizens don't question authority, meaning obedience is praised while accountability is silenced. Good believers never doubt, meaning those in power remain beyond examination. The tragic part is that you may have become the perfect participant in this setup, the one who actually internalizes all the rules other people only invoke selectively. You hurt, but you feel guilty for hurting. You notice patterns, but you shame yourself for noticing. You consider drawing a line and immediately fear being the bad guy. Yet awareness changes everything. Once you start seeing moral expectations as forces, not just truths, you gain options. You begin to ask, is this principle being applied equally, or only to keep me in my place? Is this request truly about what's right, or about what's convenient for them? Am I being invited into shared responsibility or recruited into one-sided sacrifice? The people who move from moral captivity to moral power don't become less ethical, they become less naive. They still believe in kindness, forgiveness, and generosity, but they refuse to let those values be weaponized against them. They understand that being good doesn't mean being endlessly available, endlessly patient, or endlessly silent. It means acting from conscience, not from fear of disapproval. The question is, how much longer will you let other people's moral expectations dictate your behavior while they reserve the right to be flexible with their own? If you're ready to stop being controlled by one-sided virtue and start practicing conscious, balanced morality, then recognize this truth. Morality is powerful, but only when you choose it freely, not when it's used to choose for you. Number 3. The psychology of moral presentation. There's something about morality that most people never question. They think it's only about what you are, when in reality, the world reacts just as much to what you appear to be. You assume that if you're truly honest, kind, and principled on the inside, that truth will automatically be recognized and rewarded on the outside. But look around. Do you really see the most deeply moral people in the highest positions of influence? Or do you often see people who have mastered the performance of morality, appearing fair, compassionate, principled, while making very calculated decisions behind the scenes? The people who rise aren't always the ones with the purest hearts. They're often the ones who understand how moral appearance works in different rooms, different audiences, different power structures. Machiavelli wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be, but few know what you really are. And when it comes to morality, that observation is brutally relevant. This isn't about being fake or pretending to be ethical when you're not. It's about understanding that if you refuse to think about how your values are seen, you place yourself at a disadvantage in a world where others think about it constantly. Think of the situations you move through every day. In one room, people value compassion above all else. In another, they respect courage and firmness. In yet another, they want diplomacy and restraint. If you insist on expressing your morality in exactly one way, in every context, always soft, always harsh, always quiet, always confrontational, you're not being more righteous, you're being less effective. The less strategic person believes, if I'm the same in every situation, that proves I'm authentic. The more strategic person understands, if I adapt how I express my values to fit the people and the moment, I can actually protect those values and get them heard. You see this clearly in how people communicate hard truths. One person blurts them out in the name of honesty, scorches every relationship in sight, and then says, "At least I told the truth." Another person recognizes that truth delivered with timing, tone, and emotional intelligence doesn't just explode, it lands. They choose a private conversation instead of a public confrontation, a calm tone instead of an attack, a moment when the other person is able to listen. Both value honesty. One destroys trust with it, the other deepens it. Which one is truly more moral in practice? Or consider when you're in a group that prides itself on being kind and accepting. You notice toxic behavior, harmful patterns, or subtle manipulation, but you also know this group fears anything that feels negative. If you storm in and declare, "This is wrong, and I'm calling it out," you may technically be right, but you'll likely be dismissed as dramatic, aggressive, or judgmental. The strategic moral communicator does something different. They frame their concerns in the language the group respects. If we really care about kindness, we can't ignore this pattern because it's hurting people quietly. Same moral concern, different presentation. One gets rejected, the other has a chance to create change. That's not manipulation. That's intelligent stewardship of your values. The people who criticize any adaptation as fake often don't understand how human psychology works. They imagine that being moral means refusing to consider audience, culture, or timing. But that's not integrity. That's ego. True integrity is this: your core values don't change, but your expression of those values is wise, flexible, and effective. You don't weaponize morality to control others, and you don't weaponize authenticity to justify recklessness. You understand that if your moral stance consistently shuts people down instead of opening them up, you've confused self-expression with impact. Machiavelli's insight about appearance doesn't have to turn you into a manipulator. It can turn you into a sophisticated guardian of your own ethics. You present your principles in ways that people can hear. You choose words, settings, and tones that give your values the best chance of surviving in complex environments. You recognize that it's not enough to be right in theory, you must be effective in practice, because moral consistency from a position of zero influence helps very few people. Moral clarity combined with strategic communication from a position of earned respect can shift families, organizations, even cultures. The goal isn't to build a fake moral image. The goal is to let your real convictions travel farther, reach deeper, and matter more by understanding how they appear in the eyes of others. When you master the psychology of moral presentation, you stop being the unheard, good person on the sidelines and start becoming the respected voice whose values actually shape what happens next. Number 4. Breaking free from moral guilt and limiting beliefs. Let's talk about the invisible chains that keep you trapped in patterns of self-sacrifice, over-compliance, and quiet resentment while you still think you're doing the right thing. These chains aren't physical, and they're not even imposed by law. They're made of internalized stories about what a good person is allowed to want, to ask for, and to become. How many times have you wanted to assert a boundary but stopped because it felt unloving? How many times have you wanted recognition, fair compensation, or a position of influence, but you choked on the desire because it felt selfish or unspiritual? How often have you apologized for being tired, for not being able to give more, for simply wanting a life that doesn't revolve around meeting other people's expectations? That's not pure conscience speaking, that's conditioning, installed so deeply you mistake it for your soul. The quiet belief underneath it goes something like this: if I want power, I must be corrupt. If I want protection, I must be selfish. If I want to win, I must be immoral. So you limit yourself, not because your ethics require it, but because you've been taught that moral people stay small. Moral people don't ask for too much. Moral people accept less. Meanwhile, the world you live in is quietly run by people who do not operate under that same script. They strive, negotiate, protect their interests, and pursue influence without apologizing for it, while you hesitate at the very thought of asking for what you've earned. Machiavelli understood how dangerous this kind of internal limitation can be. He observed that it is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles, meaning the value doesn't come from the status or position itself, but from the character and capability of the person who holds it. Apply that to your life. The problem is not that you might gain power. The real problem is that you've been convinced that if you gain power, you will automatically become corrupt, so you avoid positions where your morality would actually matter most. Who benefits when you think this way? Certainly not the people who need principled, intelligent voices in positions of influence. It's usually the ones who are happy to take those roles without your ethical hesitation. Your belief that wanting more is wrong doesn't protect the world from corruption. It just removes you from the field. Consider the core moral beliefs you've absorbed without ever dissecting them. If I say no, I'm unkind. If I want recognition, I'm prideful. If I protect my time, I'm selfish. If I demand fairness, I'm difficult. These aren't sacred truths, they're levers. Every time you obey them blindly, you pull the lever against yourself. You decline the opportunity, you shrink your request, you stay quiet in the meeting, you let the disrespect slide, and afterward you comfort yourself by saying, "At least I did the right thing." But did you? Or did you simply avoid discomfort in a way that protected their comfort and your moral self-image while sacrificing your long-term impact? There's a difference between conscience and conditioning. Conscience says, "Don't harm others for your gain." Conditioning says, "Don't pursue any gain if someone might disapprove." Conscience says, "Don't lie, cheat, or exploit." Conditioning says, "Don't question, don't challenge, don't rise too high, don't want too much." You've wrapped both in the same word, morality, and never realized that one protects your humanity while the other keeps you manageable. Breaking free from this doesn't mean throwing away your ethics. It means separating your genuine moral compass from the fear-based programming that came with it. What if you started asking different questions? Instead of, "Is it selfish to want this?" You ask, "What kind of person will I become if I never do?" Instead of, "Am I a bad person for wanting influence?" You ask, "What kind of person do I want to be in influence? And who do I want to protect from those who don't care?" Machiavelli's hard truth isn't that morality is useless. It's that morality without force, without structure, without power, often becomes a decoration, while more ruthless minds make the real decisions. You don't honor your ethics by keeping them powerless. You honor them by becoming strong enough that they matter. The people who escape moral captivity don't stop being kind. They stop equating unnecessary suffering with virtue. They don't stop caring about others. They stop confusing self-erasure with generosity. They don't stop believing in right and wrong. They stop believing that being right means never asserting themselves. Your job is not to stay small so that immoral people feel comfortable holding power. Your job is to grow into the kind of person who can hold power without losing your soul. That starts with breaking the belief that wanting strength, safety, or success makes you immoral. It doesn't. It makes you human. What you do with those things is where morality truly begins. If you're ready to step out of guilt-based goodness and into conscious, empowered ethics, then let this be your quiet declaration. You are no longer willing to confuse being harmless with being good. You are allowed to want more, to become more, and to protect more without apologizing for it. Number 5. The framework of strategic morality. This is where everything shifts from theory to a way of living that actually works in a world that doesn't always reward innocence. Most people think morality is a simple checklist. Always be honest, always be kind, always forgive, always give, no matter the context. But the people who navigate life most powerfully don't discard those values. They apply them with precision. They practice what we could call strategic morality, the conscious choice of when, where, and how to express their ethics so that they protect their purpose, their people, and their peace instead of sabotaging them. Think of kindness. You were taught to be kind, and that's not wrong. But strategic morality asks, to whom? How much? For what outcome? You deploy generosity fully when it strengthens healthy relationships, builds loyalty, or supports those who genuinely need and respect your help. You are the most giving person in the room when giving produces growth, healing, or trust. But when your kindness enables someone's laziness, manipulation, or disrespect, strategic morality tells you to adjust. You don't become cruel, you become selective. You move from "I must always say yes to be good" to "I must give where my giving does not destroy me or excuse harm." The same applies to honesty. You were taught to always tell the truth, and at a deep level that matters. But strategic morality refines the question, what truth, in what form, in front of whom, and at what time? Blunt honesty that humiliates someone publicly when a private conversation would have corrected the problem isn't righteousness, it's ego dressed as virtue. Strategic morality chooses transparency when it builds trust, corrects real danger, or prevents deception from spreading, and it chooses discretion when a raw fact, shared at the wrong moment or in the wrong way, would cause unnecessary damage that doesn't serve any higher purpose. Then there's forgiveness. You were told, just forgive and move on, as if forgiveness without memory or boundary is the pinnacle of goodness. Strategic morality sees it differently. You offer forgiveness when someone shows remorse, takes responsibility, or genuinely attempts to change, not to reset their behavior back to zero, but to give them a chance to grow. You do not, however, keep granting infinite second chances to someone who treats your mercy as a reset button for their abuse. Forgiveness, in this framework, is not a free pass. It's a deliberate act meant to create healing, not a moral leash that keeps you tied to someone who has no intention of changing. Machiavelli wrote, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally," and in moral terms, that means the wise person sets ethical boundaries early, while the fool waits until they are exhausted, betrayed, and broken before they finally protect themselves. Strategic morality is simply wisdom applied early. Instead of waiting years to admit that your goodness has been used against you, you start adjusting your responses the moment you see a pattern. You still value kindness, honesty, and forgiveness, but you refuse to deploy them in ways that repeatedly harm you or empower those who act in bad faith. Imagine how this framework plays out in real life. Someone at work constantly leans on you to cover their responsibilities, praising you as such a team player every time you rescue them. Conventional morality says, keep helping, that's what good colleagues do. Strategic morality says, I can help sometimes, but I won't allow my reliability to excuse their neglect. I will state my limits, require accountability, and, if necessary, involve the right channels so the burden is shared fairly. Again, because they meant well. Strategic morality tells you to forgive if you choose, but adjust access, share less with them, be clear about confidentiality, and stop giving them the information they've already shown they can't be trusted with. You are not punishing them, you are protecting yourself. Or, think of a leader who discovers corruption or injustice in their environment. Moral cowardice hides behind keeping the peace. Moral recklessness rushes into public battle without preparation. Strategic morality gathers evidence, builds alliances, chooses the right moment, and exposes what needs to be exposed in a way that is most likely to lead to change instead of martyrdom. In each case, the values are the same: justice, honesty, care, but the execution is intelligent instead of automatic. This is the heart of Machiavelli's secret truth for moral people. If your ethics are not supported by strategy, they will be sidelined by those who have strategy without ethics. Strategic morality doesn't mean you become cold or calculating in a cruel way. It means you give your conscience a backbone, your kindness a filter, your forgiveness a memory, and your honesty a plan. You still believe in being a good person, but you finally accept that being good and being effective are not enemies, they are partners. When you start living this way, your morality stops being a set of rules that others use to control you and becomes a powerful system you use to shape your life, protect the people you care about, and influence the world around you. You don't stop being ethical. You become too wise to let your ethics be turned into chains. Number 6. The choice before you. This is the point where morality stops being a comforting story and becomes a decision about how you are going to live in a world that doesn't automatically reward goodness. The cost of rigid morality isn't paid in one dramatic collapse. It's paid in quiet installments, one missed opportunity at a time, one unspoken boundary at a time, one moment of self-erasure disguised as doing the right thing. Every time you accept treatment that violates your dignity because you don't want to seem difficult, you teach people that your conscience is negotiable, but their comfort is sacred. Every time you stay silent when you see injustice because you don't want to be labeled judgmental, you show the world that your ethics are strong in theory but weak in practice. Every time you choose to be liked over being respected, you trade long-term influence for short-term approval, and the people who understand power feel that trade, even if you don't. The cost is not just your stress or your exhaustion, it's the impact you never make, the protection you never extend, the people you never help because you never let your morality gain any teeth. Right now, somewhere in the world, there is someone with your level of intelligence, your capacity for empathy, your potential for moral leadership, who is living a very different life, not because they are better than you, but because they learned Machiavelli's secret truth earlier. They realized that the world does not reward goodness alone, it rewards effective goodness. They understood that morality without strategy is easy to ignore, easy to exploit, easy to push to the margins, and they refused to keep theirs on a leash. While you were hesitating to ask for what you'd earned because it felt selfish, they were negotiating from a place of clear self-respect. While you were agonizing about whether setting a boundary was unloving, they were calmly drawing one and letting people adjust or leave. While you were clinging to the idea that being moral meant never making anyone uncomfortable, they were making necessary people uncomfortable so that something genuinely better could exist. Machiavelli famously wrote that if one must choose, it is safer to be feared than loved. But in your life, it looks like this. It is better to be respected for your moral strength than pitied for your moral naivety. It is better to be taken seriously for your principled firmness than dismissed as the harmless, nice one who never changes anything. Being loved for your softness while being ignored where it matters most is not virtue, it's powerlessness wrapped in a compliment. And I know there's a voice in your head right now saying, "This sounds harsh, this sounds extreme, this can't be the whole story." But ask yourself honestly, is that your deepest moral compass speaking, or is it the conditioning that has kept you small, compliant, and non-threatening to people who benefit from your softness? The people who taught you that wanting influence would corrupt you, look at their lives. Are they truly living the moral ideals they preach, or do they make exceptions when their own comfort, status, or security is on the line? The people who told you that questioning moral narratives was rebellion, have they done the hard work of questioning theirs, or did they just hand you a set of rules they never intended to follow consistently themselves? You were given a script: be good, be quiet, be accommodating, and somehow life will take care of you. But the people writing that script often reserve the right to be flexible, assertive, and strategic when something they value is at stake. They didn't give you the full truth. Machiavelli did. He whispered from history that power and morality are not automatically aligned, that if you want moral outcomes, you can't ignore power, and if you ignore power, you leave morality at the mercy of those who don't. That's the choice in front of you now. You can keep being the person who means well but achieves little, the person whose conscience is admirable but whose influence is negligible, or you can become the person who carries both: a sharp conscience and a sharp mind, a kind heart and a strong spine, a moral code and a strategic understanding of how to make that code matter. You can stay trapped in a version of goodness that leaves you exhausted, used, and sidelined, or you can step into a version of goodness that is boundaried, clear-eyed, and impossible to casually exploit. This isn't an invitation to become manipulative, it's an invitation to become complete. Someone who knows when to yield and when to stand, when to forgive and when to walk away, when to tell the full truth and when to choose silence because the moment is not yet right. Someone who is moral not because they are afraid of being bad, but because they consciously choose their values, even when it costs them something, while also understanding that they are allowed to protect themselves and pursue strength. If this perspective has expanded something in you, if it has put words to things you've felt but never fully articulated, then don't just nod and move on. Hit that like button so you signal to the algorithm and to yourself that conversations like this matter. Share this with someone who is drowning under the weight of being the good one while everyone else moves ahead. And subscribe, because this is only the beginning of unpacking how morality, power, and human psychology actually interact beyond fairy tales and fear. Most importantly, drop this final affirmation in the comments: I choose powerful morality. Say it because you are done paying the highest cost for the lowest influence. Say it because you refuse to abandon your ethics, but you also refuse to keep them weak. Remember, the real world doesn't belong to those who are merely good. It belongs to those who are good and effective, those who understand the real rules of human behavior and choose to use that understanding with conscience. You now know what many moral people never learn. You are allowed to seek power without losing your soul. And in fact, the world desperately needs people like you to do exactly that. The question is, Will you stay safely moral and quietly invisible, or will you become morally dangerous in the best possible way, awake, strategic, and unwilling to let your goodness be the excuse for your defeat? If this has shifted the way you see morality, power, and your own role in the world, then let this be more than just an interesting idea you heard once and forgot. Let it be the start of a new internal code. Over the next days, notice where your goodness has been quietly turned into a leash, where your desire to be fair has been used to keep you small, and where your fear of being bad has stopped you from being strong. Write those moments down, not to shame yourself, but to map the places where your morality needs a backbone. Revisit Machiavelli, not as a villain, but as a mirror for uncomfortable truths about how humans really behave. Then begin making small, deliberate shifts. One boundary you enforce, one conversation you have with clear eyes, one situation where you choose respect over approval. That's how strategic morality is built, not in grand declarations, but in repeated, conscious choices. You don't have to announce this transformation to anyone. The people around you will feel it. Your softness will still be there, but it will no longer be an entry point for exploitation. Your conscience will still guide you, but now it will be riding alongside something else you were always allowed to have: unapologetic power.